Welcome back, everybody. This speaker really does not need any introduction at all. I'm joking. Don't worry. They're making me do introductions, so I'll give you a little one. He is the chief Adobe Commerce architect. Been working for 11 years on Magento Adobe Commerce. You may have already heard him speak quite a bit today if you attended Fad's session earlier on, because every single time you guys asked Fad a technical question, Igor answered. So today is going to be discussing the complex issue of upgrades in Magento and Adobe Commerce. I welcome to the stage Igor Miniailo.
Thank you. And first of all, I really missed to be in such events, like in-person events, so that I believe a lot of us already kind of fed up during the COVID time to be on virtual conferences, so that nothing will change this time being with you, especially pre-party, after-party. It's just something insane. So today we will talk about upgradability. Like upgradability from both merchant standpoint, from both platform standpoint, and how to smooth the process of upgrades for merchants, and at the end of the day for the platform itself. Because currently for Adobe Commerce, it's also pretty big issue supporting multiple versions of the platform. Because when we are supporting multiple versions of the platform, we are allocating resources for doing this, and we are not allocating resources for doing some cool stuff like new features, new updates, and so on and so forth. And as engineers, we always love to work with the latest and greatest stuff rather than with some outdated code. So let's consider what can we do, or probably better to say what we are doing to make it happen. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. I mentioned that I really miss for in-person events, and actually this is one of the attributes of the in-person events, so that I completely forgot how to use it. So to understand better where is actually the root cause of the problem with upgradability, it makes sense to look at the extensibility model, because usually extensibility model is a really root cause of potential problems which we have with upgradability. And currently, this is pretty much the way how third-party developers, how vendors extend Adobe Commerce to introduce some functionality if it's third-party extensions, or introduce some customization on top of that functionality. And this is not even a new slide. I actually borrowed it from my old presentation from 2016, if I'm not wrong, when we initially introduced this idea of the service layer, and there was back to that time, and actually it's still a real thing, PHP service layer, which we have in Adobe Commerce. There was the entire idea to introduce this API facade and hide all these domain models and domain details provided by specific modules of the system behind this facade, and allow third-party developers to either customize or substitute or whatever. Is it cool? Of course it's cool. But the problem is that we have so many different open code or APIs besides this service layer. And here is actually pretty limited list of those APIs, which does suppose you to give a good understanding how many different items we support in our code base. So that besides PHP interfaces, we also support some classes. The PHP product model is a good example, so that we consider it as an API as well, so that we consider both product interface and product model, because our class has some additional methods which interface does not provide. We consider quite a lot of JavaScript as an interface as well. We have quite a lot of declaration and so on and so forth, so that all of that introduce a pretty big set of different APIs. Just to give you a simple example of the number of APIs we are talking about, that like a couple of months ago we had a conversation as a part of our developer guild, and there was a proposal to add to mark with an API PHP annotation 1,000 more classes in Adobe Commerce Code base. 1,000 more. So it's just huge. And moreover, like this list of APIs is not limited, because Adobe Commerce is open source, right? And people can use it or abuse in whatever way they want. That's why even so that we specifically mark something as an API actually does not mean that third-party developer or extension developer would not rely on the code which we consider as a private implementation, or should not. We completely discourage usage or extension of this code. That's why sometimes even releasing, from our perspective, completely forward-compatible version of the platform, it still may introduce some breaking changes to specific Magento installation, depending on the fragility of their customizations or modules being used on top of those installations. This is actually very true for integration as well, so that we currently support, and like integration capabilities with the third-party system are very flexible. And again, when we say very flexible as a side effect, or it's always kind of a double-edged sword, and as a side effect of the flexibility, upgradability, right? And this is because a lot of people, and myself included, consider Adobe Commerce as the most extensible e-commerce platform in the world. And with a great power comes great responsibility. So in our case, this responsibility is to support multiple versions of the system and to help our merchants to better migrate and address this problem. So yeah, with integrations, we have pretty much the same situation, no matter what type of integration you guys have, either async integration, you typically have some custom code which tracks some specific business action and then deliver it to via message queue, and then eventually this event delivered to the external system. Or like, for example, the good example is order placement, which need to be delivered to order management system, or synchronous customization for where we have an integration, let's say for real-time inventory check, and this again usually done with the help of the custom code. A big exception from this rule here is an integration which is completely built based on the API. And we don't have much of such integrations, but I saw a few of them where there is a API poller, and this API periodically retrieves all the orders or all the delta of orders which have been created since the time of the previous integration. And by the way, these kind of integrations proven to be the most durable, the most stable for changes, because those integrations rely on REST APIs. And to my knowledge, we never, you can never say never, but we did not change any, and we did not introduce any major changes to REST APIs, which were initially introduced since Magento 2.0 release. So we already kind of define a problem, right? So what the possible solution can be, and I specifically added this slide because a lot of people asked me yesterday regarding, are we going to substitute everything with microservices? Are we going to rewrite the entire platform with microservices and substitute it all together? And so potentially it might be a good solution, potentially, but there are so many different risks. And we can be certain about that this endeavor going to be successful for both us and our merchants. That's why we can be certain about only, as quoting Martin Fowler, that we introduce a big turbulence, a big bang for merchants. if we will substitute everything with microservices, because then we will have two different systems with two different set of problems. And in continuation of this conversation, especially taking into account that there are other commerce platforms on the market which provide the SaaS solution, and that's why there are a lot of conversations and a lot of analysis regarding the PaaS or versus SaaS, what is better, and so on and so forth. And as a definite advantage of the PaaS solution, we may consider almost unlimited extensibility, while the definite advantage of the SaaS solution is always current, is the possibility to upgrade all the merchants at once, not keeping them on the previous version of the system. So our ultimate goal as for architectural team of Adobe Commerce is to get best of both worlds, is to get extensibility, but along with that to provide SaaS-like upgradability. And let me describe now how we are going to achieve it. And for achieving this, probably you already heard, because my colleagues on different presentations during this, they already mentioned about App Builder, so that let me double click on this specific topic and talk you and tell you regarding the App Builder and what the App Builder actually can do for you, as for extension developers, as for system integrators, and as for third-party developers. So that App Builder as a completely full framework which empowers developers with all possibilities to work, to extend, and to customize different solutions across Adobe Experience Cloud. And it goes with Dev Console, it goes with the CLI, and possibility to write application and debug those application, trace logs, and so on and so forth. So it's not only serverless compute, which is a part of App Builder, but it's also a React-based UI framework, which provides the possibility to create the single-page applications and store those applications on CDN. And include them into different UI themes. Also, so that you may see that it's not only kind of AWS Lambda-like serverless compute, but it's a big suite which provides which is supposed to introduce and refine the dev experience for developers working with different Adobe solutions. This is very high-level architecture of App Builder, where you may see that this is kind of node-based solution, which provides the possibility to store single-page applications on CDN, and along with that, it provides some file storage, some data storage, key value. And also it provides the possibility to work with business events provided by not only Adobe Commerce, but also other products across Adobe Experience Cloud, for example, AEM. And I mentioned previously that there are like three typical problems or three typical use cases which we are considering when we are talking about extensibility. This is extensibility in introducing some new functionality on top of existing code. This is integration with a third-party system or first-party system. When I say first-party, I mean integration with, for example, Adobe Experience Manager or Adobe Analytics or Adobe Target, or other Adobe owned products, Or we are talking about integration with PIM, with OMS, with ERP, with other systems. And also, last but not least, is a possibility to extend UI. And especially, this is also especially important taking into account the vast diversity of Magento frontends being supported right now on the market. And even during this conference, there were a couple of presentations covering different frontends. And we, to be honest, don't want developers to, when they consider to write, for example, extension, they need to provide different UIs for different UI themes. So that we want to provide the possibility to create the single page application, which just need to be injected across all those different frontends. So again, App Builder goes with the low-code CLI included, which provides some plugins which simplify the work with different Adobe systems, so that you may see the plugin for IMS, for AM, for Target, and so on and so forth. Again, what App Builder does from the extensibility perspective, we are moving from the main process, from the main execution process, all the third-party code. And along with that, relying on the API, we are getting a possibility to upgrade the core system, to upgrade the monolith, not like pretty much being sure that we are not introducing any backward incompatible changes, which eventually will lead to some problems on the merchant end. And what I also wanted to emphasize on this slide that you may understand that for us, the API first approach from the system design standpoint is very, very important. And again, answering the question regarding that, you guys are building something with microservices, you are building something with App Builder. Are you completely going to deprioritize the work on Magento monolith? So the answer here is not. And even so, if you would want to deprioritize monolith, we can't be, because we are relying on the APIs of Magento Commerce or Adobe Commerce monolith. So that we are specifically very interested to make those APIs very fast and performant. That's why probably during the last 1 or 2 years, we actually delivered to Adobe Commerce the most substantial changes from the performance perspective. In 2.4.2, in 2.4.4, and in the upcoming 2.4.6 release, you may see a lot of performance updates. That's why we can't build anything on the side in the cloud, not relying on the fast Adobe Commerce core, Adobe Commerce monolith along with that. So this is kind of a marketing architecture diagram which describes the current state which we have now from the ecosystem perspective, from the extensibility perspective, and the model in future which we are targeting towards. Again, one of the pretty important things is that new App Builder introduces not only out-of-process extensibility, but it also introduces a unified developer experience across different Adobe products. So that if your project, for example, already works with Adobe Experience Manager and you used to some extensibility, you used to some customization there, we would like to make this customization experience to be ubiquitous through all the throughout all the products provided by Adobe. So that prevents this friction when a developer has to learn separately how to make the extensions for Adobe Experience Manager and Adobe Commerce. Another thing which is very, very important here for us is the API orchestration layer, which is API mesh. And this is this is another kind of facade which we introduce on top of our APIs. Here specifically GraphQL APIs, where we are what we are getting here. We are getting a possibility to orchestrate all the traffic all the GraphQL traffic and either route it to one system like Adobe Commerce Monolith or to completely different system. And those traffic routing might be absolutely transparent for a consumer, for your headless application. And the simplest example is a product query, because you may consider that you want to retrieve the data for the product detail page. But data from the product detail page may be provided by inventory management system, specifically inventory availability or stock availability status, by CPQ system, specifically pricing of this product, and all other catalog data, which might be provided either by Adobe Commerce or by external PIM and so on and so forth. So that your storefront solution, your front end, actually still makes only one GraphQL query. And here because you can achieve pretty much the same with REST as well. But with REST, most probably you will face N+1 problem. You will need to request all those queries directly, and so on and so forth. While we try to keep to preserve an idea that storefront should be as simple as possible, and we don't overcomplicate storefront with the knowledge with how many different systems the storefront works. So that's, in this case, the storefront still will issue one GraphQL query to get the product data, while our API mesh, being this API orchestration layer, even on the level of one GraphQL query, can route the request to different systems and get, for example, stock status attribute data from inventory management system, while pricing from CPQ and so on and so forth, and then merge all those responses together and return them back to a consumer. And as you may see, this integration layer works not only with Adobe Commerce or Adobe-based sources, but it also works with the third-party APIs, which is very important, so that you may always bring your own API, and from that standpoint, consider that Adobe will provide you an infrastructure for making those integrations, so that it's not, maybe I am not going to brag and say that we introducing integration platform as a service. Probably we are not there yet. But what we do, we provide the API orchestration layer, and we provide app builder functions which can be added as a custom resolver, so that, for example, if you are getting a response from Adobe Commerce Monolith or from the third-party system, you may immediately introduce some customization on that response. And this is how the creation of the API schema may look like, so that you may see that we are combining here three different sources: Adobe Commerce, content from AEM, and live search, and as a result, we are getting GraphQL schema, which is the mesh and which represents the schema which will cover the entire project. And by the way, this QR code will lead to the page where you can read about API mesh, and also you can apply for our open beta, which is started since end of June. And last but not least, what I wanted to mention is eventing. Eventing is very, very interesting topic. We have quite a lot of events. I don't have much time, so that I will try to be speedy. I will try to switch to the second speed of the way how I talk. And also you may read more about eventing following this link, which is decoded by this QR code. And this is an article which I published some time ago on LinkedIn. And I specifically describe the use cases, how we are going to refine eventing mechanism for Adobe Commerce and to deliver those events to SaaS, and how to improve the integration capabilities of the platform. And currently, I started my presentation saying that we have a lot of different integration capabilities, and there are three typical patterns third-party developers follow, but most of those patterns imply some some PHP code being recited as a part of the monolith. The main idea here is to introduce webhook framework, and here you may see that how this webhook framework looks like, so that you provide the possibility to specify the callback, and you are specifying this callback for business events. And the interesting and probably the most important thing which I wanted to outline as a part of this presentation, that we are trying to preserve existing events and their payload, which we have right now in Adobe Commerce. So that, let's consider that right now you are pluginizing our product repository, and when some product is either created or being updated, you have some plugin, and using this plugin you deliver those changes to some external system. So right now we can say, like, you can just choose this event that you want to get all the updates from the product repository, and we as Adobe, we will preserve even payload from the product repository specific method, let's say save, and we will deliver this product interface for you, and you can handle it whatever way you want to handle. And to do this, we will definitely generate some after plugins and so on and so forth. We'll do some magic, and the entire idea that we will try to preserve the same contract which you guys already been using, but move the execution out of process. So this is the final diagram, which shows that we are very interested to get those events, deliver them to SaaS, and like refine them and deliver across different first level Adobe services, so that we eventually can improve our segmentation, our targeting, our analytics, and so on and so forth. I see that this is pretty much all. So I will leave some time for questions, if any.
My question was, is there a place where you get to see the jobs from the eventing that we're sending to the other systems and retry failed jobs?
It's a great question, and because it depends on the specific use case you are talking about. Are you talking about monitoring specifically, or you would like just, for example, for dev purposes, you would like to test and see some specific event, how it's going through?
Sometimes systems are down, and the question is, maybe it's down because there was a glitch in the other system, and so that needs to be corrected, and then the event needs to be retried. And sometimes it's just, another system was down, and, that kind of
So we have eventing so that you may see all the events happening as a part of the Adobe console, so that those events are being tracked and so on and so forth. And but this is especially useful for dev purposes, because in the production, when you have the millions or billions events, it may be very hard to track, and the UI does not actually cover the millions of events of that. And for this specific use case, when you have billions of events and you may need to track something, we provide the possibility of distributed logging, so that getting this log, you may see this specific event or session and what specific services or serverless function being executed as a part of the execution. So yes.
Thank you.
So also on the events, will there be like a module that gets installed into Magento so you can configure which events to notify on, basically? And then will those be asynchronous, like relay, or will they put into the message queue? How will that look?
Yeah, and actually it was depicted on the last diagram, which I decided not to spend time on. But yeah, so we're going to provide some module as a part of the Adobe Commerce monolith, and this actually module will have a declaration, so that, and one part of the declaration going to be provided by us, And we will list there all the events which we need to track, like for example events for product recommendations, events for which are needed for our SaaS services, while another piece of configuration going to be provided by third-party developers, so that you may list there all the events which you want to track, and based on those events which are defined in both of those configurations, which are eventually merged, we will co-generate after plugins. In some cases, it might be not after plugins. It might be something else. But the idea currently is to use after plugins and just intercept the execution and send those events to SaaS infrastructure.
Okay. So that means in production you couldn't, while the application was running, you couldn't register a new event because you'd have to run DI compile.
And currently we are about to run a beta program, and we had the kind of debates about it, because at least specifically my opinion was that it's okay that we need to redeploy the entire application to define new events, while there were people considering that there might be use case when new events need to be added along the way without redeployment. We want to clarify this along the beta program, so that we want you to tell us what's the right choice.
Okay. And then the other question was, are they going to, when the event fires, will it be put into a message queue, or will it be synchronously sent out to the other system?
That's a great question. It's not going to be through the message queue, but it's going to be asynchronously, from the perspective that we're going to use Sidecar to the application container, so that, and that Sidecar will be responsible for delivering those messages.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
No, you're okay.
Thank you very much.